Hello everyone, this is Kim Lay with A2Q2, and in this video I will continue the answer to the popular question, what activities are required or recommended for a company that is preparing to go public in Q4 of 2021 or Q1 of 2022. And so this video will give you an overview, and then in other shorter videos we'll dive deeper into each of these processes. So here I'm sharing with you, every company has on average 10 processes. What I'm sharing here is a company, an e-commerce company that has inventory. And you can see here that is the process, and then below it there will be some sub-processes that I can share in the individual videos. And the typical types of activities is going to be assessing control gaps, documenting your processes and your controls, creating a risk control matrix or documenting in a risk control matrix. There's the conducting a walkthrough or a test of design and performing actual testing. And here you can see that I've listed the actual process when something is generally required or recommended or even optional where it's much further out. So the key processes when you're an e-commerce company is entity level controls. That's every company. It doesn't matter which industry you're in, will have entity level controls. It's very important to set the tone at the top. And here you can see for a pre-IPO company that's preparing, you want to assess what controls you have in place, what are your processes. Typically, it's documented in a risk control matrix. There's not a flow chart. Sometimes people will write it out more of a narrative form, but more typically, it's a listing of your key controls. Here, most people are doing a risk control matrix. That's the easiest way, and a risk control matrix is a listing of your key controls, and in a different video, I'll explain what's typically included in a risk control matrix. And typically there's a walkthrough of some sort to assess the design of the control. It's recommended, but it's not required when you're doing that first assessment, when you're just before you're public. And then testing is optional. Many of my clients do not do testing because they're more interested in designing the right control, making sure people are putting it in place and practicing doing these types of controls and activities. Then you go to the equity process, what we also call ESA, or equity stock administration process. There's your financial statement close or financial close and reporting process. Some people also call it the record to report process. There's your fixed assets. It's your payroll and your HR. Typically, they're combined together. Some companies break it out to their payroll process and then their HR process separately. We typically see it combined because it makes sense when you're hiring all the way to when you're paying someone. Next is going to be your inventory. For an e-commerce company, it's important. And typically for the tech companies that we work with, lots of homegrown systems, the integration of systems is very important here. And then we have our order to cash process, otherwise known as the revenue process. The procure to pay or expenditure process is another one. Your treasury cash management. So that includes the banking process. It includes the debt compliance, and investments, whether you're investing in marketable securities or investing in other types of stock, like a cost basis types of investment. Tax is typically one. And for an e-commerce company, it's really important that you focus not only income tax, but also your sales and use tax. Particularly sales tax is something that we pay a lot of attention to because that's where there's your liability to pay, to collect sales tax or use tax, such as VAT, value added tax as well, typically in that category. Making sure you have a process to collect and remit, otherwise it becomes the company's liability. So we'll dive more into that. And then finally, your IT general controls. Some auditors call it general IT controls. The acronym might be, some of the letters might be switched around, but in general, it's the activities around access to your programs and data. It's your change management. It's your new system development cycle and your computer operations. So those are the typical processes that you would look at. And then you can see on here the activities, whether it's assessing the gaps, and I've put on here flow charts or narratives. And the literature does not require flow charts and narrative. It actually just talks about documenting your process and controls. So as a management team, you have the flexibility to pick which type of or how you document your controls. Within the last 3 years, especially 2 years, I've seen more and more Big Four firms require flowcharts for high-risk processes. So a lot of companies, it was more popular to have narratives, and more the auditors are asking for flowcharts at least to separate out swim lanes, identify segregation of duties, and see the process from beginning to end. That's it. I'll have more detailed videos on specific processes and dive into and show you examples as well. Have a great day.